So today I'm talking about my framework that I use to apply to coaching a particular exercise with any particular athlete. So essentially what I'm trying to talk about here is the three different layers of context that we need to have when actually coaching someone. The reason this is important is because it's all good and well for us to understand 100 different exercises in our exercise library. That's awesome. But the really, really important thing is that when we're coaching, we're not just coaching a squat. We're coaching a squat within a whole program that this athlete is doing. And we're coaching the squat with a specific goal for that athlete. Okay? So when I talk about this framework, I've got three layers that I've essentially identified. The first layer is the exercise in general. So this, in this situation, would be the squat. Okay? And the really important thing to note here is that these things don't generally change. These are the base level context for that exercise. So for the squat, we know that it will always be there to train the legs, okay? There is no way that I could do a squat while it is still considered a squat for it to train the biceps, yeah? There's also some other things that are going to go along with that. So we know that the hips are going to move straight up and down, because if the hips don't move straight up and down, it is no longer a squat. We are now starting to call it a deadlift kind of pattern, or maybe even a lunge pattern, depending on what kind of movement that is. Now, from there, once you have that base context, you can then build off of that, okay? So a level 1 coach, a basic coach that understands how to do the exercise, this will be actually most of your gym goers as well. If somebody goes to the gym with one of their mates, this is probably the level of advice they're going to get. They're going to get the advice of, I did squats like this is what squats are supposed to be like. Then the next level that a coach can get to is putting squats within a program for a specific purpose, okay? So what this might look like is this might help us choose our different variations, or it might also help us choose our intent for the squat. So the most basic version of this would be choosing a rep range based on the goal. So if your goal is pure strength and you're maybe working up to a powerlifting competition, you're going to have to do single efforts. And that is going to affect how you go about the squat. Whereas if the squat is just a hypertrophy movement for you, you're doing it for general leg strength, you might be in those upper rep ranges where you're thinking about 6 to 8 to 10 to 12 kind of a thing. And there's nothing wrong with either one of those, but we're just coaching the squat with the goal, okay? But there's other things that fit into this as well. So let's say that somebody is doing a program where they're aiming to get a maximum effort on the squat. You might have one day that's technique based, where you really slow things down. You've got a lot of tempo added. You're giving a lot of time to feel things. Okay, you might add some sensory exercises around the squat on that day. But then on another day, you might have a volume focused day. So now instead of going a really technique focused back squat super slow, you might have a volume day where all of a sudden you're on an SSB because it's going to let you get more range, or maybe even a machine, and you're going just for volume. You're higher reps, you're trying to sink the depth, you're trying to just get the most out of it. And then maybe you've got another strength day where it's just output based, and you let yourself sink into the hole and you let yourself get the most weight out of it without really slowing it down. Those are 3 different days that might have different goals. Another example of the program might be the time of season that you're in, or what you're specifically trying to get out of that program. So we've spoken so far about like a powerlifting kind of person where you're just trying to lift the most possible weight on the squat eventually to a single effort. But within like sports programming, you might look at having reduced range squats. So maybe the goal within this program is that it's a priming day and we're going to do some really, really reduced weight pin squats with high intent to go up. And we don't care about the eccentric at all. Now, the reason that the goal within the program is important, it's an important context to have, is because it fundamentally changes how we coach it. If I've got a volume day of a powerlifting program where I'm trying to get huge depth and really take everything out of the eccentric that I can, that is going to look so different to if I'm in a priming phase in finals for an AFL or a basketball or whoever athlete. That that concentric is going to be so much more rapid for them. There's going to have so much less range of motion. They're going to have to, I don't care about the eccentric at all. My only goal is for them to get set under the bar, be comfortable under the bar, stand up as quickly as they can. Whereas with the volume, there is so many more factors. So the goal within the program is our second level, and that's where you might be a level 2 coach, because now you're actually thinking about the other things around it. And now the third part is the specific needs of the athlete. Okay, so you might have a program that is shared amongst 20 different people, but there's going to be different things between those people that is actually going to change how you have to coach it. Number one might be their anatomy and how comfortable they find that exercise, and how their setup goes. So this is things like finding differences in how wide the feet might go in the squat, or it might be differences in how they kind of need to set their body so that they're actually in a position to succeed with that movement. Okay, so that might look different between two different people doing the exact same program, same time of season, same sport, whatever it is, right? Another thing that might be specific to the athlete might be their emotional state going in, or how they're kind of just feeling in general. They might not have recovered as well. So we're going to have to change how we go through that exercise. Another thing that might affect it is injury. Like maybe they've had issues that come up with squats before. They haven't really been able to tolerate the same thing. All of these different things, all of these social factors, all of these psychological factors, and all these biological factors, all three of them come into it and are going to change how you coach it. Now, does it necessarily mean that every single time that you try to teach somebody a squat, you need to jump straight to level 3? You need to jump straight to these specific needs of the athletes? No, right? Those are all things to consider as you go through and you fix the movement, and you improve on it, and you try and get the most out of each squatting session. Okay? But that is context that you need to think about. And the more that you have an athlete, the longer that you get to work with them, the more specific that you might be, or the more that you've actually worked with that person, the more context that you have. If you take into account that stuff from level 3, it's going to make the program better, and it's going to make them actually get more out of those sessions. Knowing level 1 is good. Knowing level 1 is important, but it doesn't reduce the importance of the 2 levels above it. Because once we've set that foundation, we can build on top of it to get more out of the session. Those are my 3 layers of context that you might take into coaching any particular exercise within any particular session. We use the example of squats here, but it can apply to pretty much anything. Okay, if you take into account these 3 different levels, you're going to be better at coaching an athlete through a program.